Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Michael Hernandez and this is Freelance Friday, where I like to share everything I've learned as a freelance classical musician in the 21st century. Today's episode, Management 101. How to get it, how not to get it, how much does it cost, is it worth it, what to do, and what not to do. I will be drawing on my own personal experience dealing with several management agencies over the past 10 years. How to hire a manager, how to fire a manager, and how to be a manager. So, you're not going to want to miss this. Grab your notebook and get your iced Trenta green tea with extra ice and 2 pumps of sugar-free vanilla, and let's go. There are so many myths and a lot of misinformation that circulate around the idea of artist management. For example, right now I'm sure there are students that are practicing very hard in their practice room, but somewhere deep in the recesses of their mind, they're fantasizing that one day someone like Kris Jenner will be roaming the halls of their music building, hear them practicing, stumble into their room, and demand that they become their manager. And before you know it, it's a matter of time before that student is up on stage playing to packed concert halls around the globe. And I hate to break it to you, but that's really unlikely. It's not even real. That doesn't happen. Kris Jenner is not interested in promoting classical music. I know because I asked, so just drop it. With that said, there are several things that you can do to improve your chances of obtaining a manager, and that's what we are going to talk about today. So in my episode where I talk about the top 5 books for every freelancer, I mention a very important book called Beyond Talent by Angela Beeching. This book I credit for really changing my life. I stumbled upon that book my last semester of graduate studies at Florida State, and it was very enlightening. And spoiler alert, this book does encourage you to manage your own career. So I thought, okay, I can do this, and I started just basically booking concerts for the quartet for the following season. So this was March of my last year, and I was booking tours for the following school year for my quartet because we were all leaving Florida. I had booked several light concerts already, little tours, one tour in October, one tour in November. Each concert paid anywhere from $400 to $1,500. And this seemed great, because we had 5 to 6 concerts each month. They were all on a tour, so we made it work and it seemed fine. About 6 months into this booking process, now we're looking at the early fall of the following season, I booked our first major concert with a pretty high-profile chamber series, and the series was going to pay us $10,000. And at that time, that seemed like an extraordinary amount of money, considering I had just started booking concerts 6 months ago. And this concert was supposed to take place a year and a half from the date that I booked it. Most larger chamber series do book up to 2 years in advance, sometimes 3. So already I found myself in this world of booking concerts a year and a half in advance to booking concerts a month in advance. Some were library series that paid a couple $100s, and some were something like this that was paying several $1,000s. So already at this time, I felt thrown into the deep end of the pool before you can swim. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just really learning on the job and trying to hone my newfound skill set. And I thought, wow, okay, this is totally possible. Within a year's time, I had booked us on several chamber series that we happened to be the first saxophone quartet that would appear on those series. We were doing orchestral festivals all within the first year, quartet concertos, and I had gotten us a featured article in Saxophone Journal, a featured article in Chamber Music America, and we were also heard on NPR's Performance Today, all within the first year, and all self-managed and self-driven. Meaning none of this came from winning a competition. This was all just being aggressive and convincing on the phone. And of course the playing was good too, but my point is that you can get a lot done by just really putting your mind to it. So word started to circulate the following year after our first big season doing all of this stuff. And I started taking on other clients. So again, I'm a year and a half out of school, and I started taking on, I took on a student chamber ensemble, a violinist friend I started managing, and I even started managing a faculty member at Florida State. And this was a big joke because I was a performance major. I did not know what I was doing. I just happened to have a knack at making cold calls and convincing people to give me concerts. So this brings me to my next point of when do you need a manager? So I started to feel a little overwhelmed managing for myself, the Mono Quartet, the Mono Trio, and these other clients that I was taking on. And I thought, okay, I need help. I need an extra hand somehow. And I tried several things. I went from hiring assistants, bartering with my students that could do basic emailing. Again, these were like high school students. I didn't know. This was before I was even teaching in a college. I would give like free lessons, and if the student was smart enough, I would trust him to like email some responses, because I was literally swamped with all of this, trying to figure all of this out. That didn't work. So then I hired like students' mothers to see if they could help me catch up on these emails, and I would show them like how to make a cold call, and I would give them a discount on their kids' lessons. Finally, it was like the fall of 2011, I actually was approached by a management firm, Price Rubens. They actually managed two really well-established saxophonists at the time, Otis Murphy and Tim McAllister, who were much older than I was and way more established. Like, they were established. I was just freelancing out of school. I was just basically keeping my head above water. So they contacted me and they wanted to add me to their roster. At that time, I thought, this is great, and they worked on a retainer, which means you pay a monthly fee, which I didn't have a problem with. A lot of people have a problem when they're approached by management, but they want to be kept on a retainer, because I had had a couple years of experience managing, so I knew how intense it was, and how, at that time, I had started taking a cut of, that was how I was making a living too, because I would take a cut, like a manager cut of everything that I booked. But that barely covered the amount of hours you spent on the phone and emailing and planning and contracts and negotiations and the concert, So I did not have a problem with the retainer. I think at the time I justified it by taking on an extra student and having one less coffee a week. I didn't pay for any coffees on Mondays, and I knew that I had to recruit an extra student, and that would cover the retainer. So I thought, yes, I will take it. The person was Price Rubin. The company was not interested in the quartet. They just wanted me, which I was hoping they would be interested in the quartet, because that would take a lot of work off my shoulders. But I thought, well, okay, at least I don't have to book concerts for myself. I can focus on my clients, which was my quartet, the trio, and these other clients that I had picked up. But here's where I will tell you what to look out for when you are approached by management. If you think about it, here's this person, 20-some-year-old, that really is just kind of hustling, calling people and shaking them down for concerti, but it looks really impressive. I mean, this quartet, they're in magazines, they're on the radio, they're playing these festivals, and they're playing these chamber series that usually only have string quartets, so I could see how it would look impressive, like, oh yeah, let's get this guy. But really, then you have like Tim McAllister and Otis Murphy, who are like world-class saxophonists, already well established. So you have these three people on your roster. Who's going to be the easier sell? This kid no one's ever heard of, or these two, professional saxophonists? So that would be my one word of advice. Whenever you're looking for a manager or you're approached by a manager, you want to make sure that you have the best odds. For example, if that one that I gave you wasn't a good enough example, if you're a concert pianist, you want to go with a manager that isn't already managing like several concert pianists. You want to be their only one. A good example of somebody that does this really well is Ariel Artist. And, they have like at the time, they had like one wind group, they have a string group, they have a string quartet. Rarely will they have like two string quartets. They'll have like a new music piano person, they'll have a solo violinist. But it's like one of everything, so that if a presenter is interested in a solo violinist, we only got one and that person is getting that gig. Versus an artist roster that has several solo violinists, because then who do you choose from? And then that's not really fair to the artist. So needless to say, that relationship with Price Rubin did not last very long. It was just a learning experience. I was with them for like maybe a little less than a year, and I thought, this isn't really worth anybody's time or money because you already have 2 classical saxophones. Why would you want a third? Like I mentioned earlier, not everyone is going to be approached by a management firm, right? So what are some things that you can do to seek out a manager? One thing you can do is that you can go to a booking conference, such as Chamber Music America, which happens every January in New York City. Chamber Music America is also known as CMA. There are several regional conferences also, regional booking conferences, such as Midwest Arts Exchange, Pacific Arts Exchange. There are so many. I know that we attended a Southern one once. I will put links below to all of the different regional booking conferences, but I will only be talking about CMA or Chamber Music America because that's the one that I attended the most. What a booking conference is, it's basically a trade show for musicians. You have 3 parties that attend. You have your musicians, your concert presenters, the people that organize the concerts, and you have your managers. Now, often the performers will apply to showcase, which means to perform at the conference. Your managers will set up booths trying to entice the concert presenters, and the concert presenters are the ones that get to walk around and basically judge everybody. They get to go listen to all of the talent, see who they want on their concert series, and they get to go peruse all of the booths and see who they want to hire. And basically everyone else is trying to network and be noticed by these concert presenters. It can be a very overwhelming experience because everything is happening simultaneously. There's also great seminars, very educational seminars that you can attend. But while these seminars are happening, there's back-to-back performances, usually in 2 different spaces, and the booths are in another location. So you really have to make choices. You have to know you already have to have an idea as a concert presenter of who you want to listen to so that you can catch them, and who you want to see, and what managers you want to check in with. So even if you are a performer that is lucky enough to be selected to showcase, that doesn't guarantee that you will have the audience that you want. Maybe that one concert presenter that would hire you isn't there while you're performing because they're somewhere else listening to another group or walking around schmoozing with the management companies. And that's kind of a risk you have to take. So the first time I went by myself. I believe that the quartet split my expenses so that I could go kind of representing the quartet. And I had made all these promotional materials, and I was like ready to hit the ground running. I had never been. I had heard stories. I wasn't prepared for how intense it would be. For example, I was in a conversation with somebody telling them about my quartet, and somebody from a very well established artist agency basically bumped into me and like interrupted the conversation that I was having because they represented a saxophone quartet, and I was just so taken aback. I couldn't believe that was really happening, and this person hijacked that conversation. She then proceeded to follow me throughout the conference, and basically anybody I handed my card to, she would then go up to them and talk about this saxophone quartet that she was representing. So that was super annoying, and I wasn't ready for that. And I thought, wow, this sucks, Plus, I wasn't playing. The quartet wasn't there, so I wasn't even able to showcase anything. I had a bunch of CDs in CD covers that I had made, and a bunch of promo materials that I had made that I was just like passing out. It was a very educational experience because I got to see firsthand how this conference was run, and that a lot of people showcase all night. So while the showcases stop at 5, let's say, at the hotel, then after 5, there are showcases all throughout New York City, within reason, that presenters go to, and it's actually quite a big social event. Presenters are expected to kind of go to these, and they usually do because that's why they're there. They're there to have fun, and they go out, they go drinking, and then they go to all of these performances, which are little mini concerts off-site. And in fact, a lot of really well-respected management agencies put on these showcases off-site, and it's just a little sampling of their roster. Each person on their roster gets like a 15-minute set, and there's food, and there's hors d'oeuvres, there's drinks, and it's actually quite fun. And I think better than the showcases that happen actually at the conference. The trick is to get those concert presenters to those after-hour showcases. But it's not impossible, and I ended up doing that the following 2 years, showcasing with the quartet offsite. And, we did get some gigs that way, but rarely were we approached by management. There was one time my first year, I was approached by a really well-known management firm now. At that time, they had just started that company, and they had been following me on Twitter. Back then, I used to be on Twitter. Since then, I've lost my access to Twitter, and I don't have access to the retrieval email anymore, so I'm just locked out of my Twitter. So if anybody has followed me on Twitter and then the last 2 years have seen really weird things, that's not me tweeting. I just don't have control over that account, and I'm locked out. Anyways, that person had been following me on Twitter, and I was really surprised because I had never heard of them. She's like, oh yeah, we're really into new music, and I'm interested in having you on the roster. And again, I pushed the quartet. I was like, well, you should consider this. You should consider monoquartet for your roster. So we had talked shortly after that conference for a couple months back and forth, but it just ended up not being the right fit for both of us. There was already a saxophone in one of the groups that she managed, so she felt that that was kind of a conflict of interest, which I respected because I had just been through an experience like that the year before. And then we were required to take anything and everything that person booked for us. And any leads that we had, I had to give over. And I already had proven to myself and others that I was really good at this. So for me to kind of continue booking, but then to hand everything over to somebody else to just, finish off, didn't make sense to me. And again, it was a bit of a control thing for me. I thought, nah, I'm good. I can continue doing this. And they didn't want us anyway, so it didn't really matter in the end. Basically, I think attending a booking conference is a great idea. However, it is only worth it if you showcase. And even then, it's not guaranteed that a manager or a concert presenter will hear you and want you. By the way, if you're finding value in this content, please consider liking and subscribing. Liking the video and subscribing to this channel. Also ding that bell so you can be notified anytime I release secret content. Okay, moving on. Another way to get management is by winning a competition. There are several competitions that offer management as one of their prizes, such as Concert Artist Guild or Astral Artist, in which the winner is then placed on the artist roster for 1 to 2 seasons, as almost like a trial period. And that artist is booked for the next 2 seasons. They're full-time, which is great. What I've seen happen a lot is that an ensemble, let's say, wins that prize, is fully managed for a year or two, and then after that management company moves on to the new winner, they drop that ensemble, and that ensemble then has a big decline in performances. What they could have done is still win that competition, but immediately after winning, start to self-manage. Use those titles that you have won to kind of get more concerts. And it looks even better if you're unavailable for the next 2 seasons because you're booking the 3rd and 4th year out. And then those concerts that you do have, you can maintain those relationships so that you can cycle back in year 5 and 6. And maybe those concert presenters, if you play well enough, they'll want to not only have you back, obviously, but tell their friends in their network about you so you could kind of build on top of that. I think that would be a really smart way to do it. I just haven't seen that happen a whole lot. My last bit of advice for seeking management is to find somebody like me, let's say, that is really good at booking concerts, and maybe they don't belong to a management firm. And maybe there's somebody in your life that is like that you know that perhaps they have an arts admin degree and they're very hungry and they're wanting to work. Or they don't even have to have an arts admin degree. They just have to be a little motivated and maybe a little persuasive and believe in your product, right? Make a deal with them. Maybe you don't want to put them on a retainer, but you can certainly offer them 15 to 20% of anything they book, and that is their motivation to book. I actually did have another experience with a manager that was very much like that. That person signed myself as a soloist and the quartet, and that relationship was good. They weren't on a retainer. There was a contract, but it wasn't very binding, meaning that it wasn't like a multi-year contract. I mean, I think it was just like a year contract, I forget, and we renewed it. I actually do forget the details of that, but it was a relationship that seemed to work, and there's relationships like that that can work. For example, how I was booking those clients way back in the day. The nice thing about doing it that way is that you're not paying a retainer, so if you don't see a return, which does happen a lot because it takes a lot of time, it does not matter how good your product is. It really doesn't. It matters how good you are at selling that product, and it takes practice. And the next few episodes, we are going to talk about how to be successful at selling your product. I'm all about self-management, but I did want to talk about ways that you can get management. But even though you've seen in all of those ways, whether it's winning a competition, that doesn't last forever. Sometimes it might, but forever is really a long time, so it really doesn't last forever. It might get you a couple seasons, and it's what you do with those seasons. It's what you do with those wins that will ensure that you have a future in this business. Even though you've won management for 2 years, you still have to take it from there. And that's the point I'm trying to drive home. Even if you're approached by a manager like I was, they may not be the right fit for you. Like for me, they already had other saxophonists on their roster. So what could I do to stand out? Again, that falls on the artist. What can you do to be a better sell? And booking conferences. Sure, you can go, but what are you going to do to stand out? Just by showing up doesn't mean that you're guaranteed management or concerts. So what do you have to do to stand out, to be booked or to be put on an artist roster? All of those things are coming up in the next 2 episodes. What can you do to stand out, and how do you sell yourself? Kris Jenner, she does not care about you. I, on the other hand, care very much about all of you. So, if you care about me, you will subscribe to this channel and you will keep tuning in for our Freelance Friday series, which, there's only so many episodes left. I've tried to take you from the very beginning about booking orchestra gigs because those are very long term. It's like throwing out a fishing line. You don't know if you're going to get any return. Reading up on some basic books that I have found really helpful for myself. And then how do you get gigs? How to start a private studio, how to get wedding gigs, how to play at a church. But now we're getting into the big shows. How do you get on those major concert series? How can you manage your actual performing career? How can you get those concertos? All of that's coming up, so don't give up. Continue to like, continue to subscribe. Stay safe, and I'll see you next Friday. 6 miles on Friday morning.